Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Conan O'Brien said, "If I die in Los Angeles, I promise my lying in state will be a drive-through." Conan also said, "Nothing stops illegal immigration like flying you to our country's most exclusive island." Late Night got in on the DeSantis thing as well. Colbert said, "Ron DeSantis flew 2 planes of Hispanic immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. Hey, Ron, if you're trying to discourage immigration, maybe don't send people to one of the loveliest parts of New England just in time for leaf peeping season." Trevor Noah, Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida, so why is he grabbing refugees in Texas and shipping them to Massachusetts, huh? So he can prove that America's immigration system is broken? Yeah, everybody knows that, but instead of pushing lawmakers to actually reform the system, he's using taxpayer money to what, go viral? If you told DeSantis to spend the same amount of money helping these asylum seekers, he'd be like, oh, we don't have the funding for that. But to troll the Democrats, suddenly he's like, put it on my card. Trevor added, by the way, America actually has a history of doing this. In the 1960s, racist organizations in the South shipped black people up to northern states to make liberals uncomfortable. But Ron DeSantis obviously doesn't know about that because the pages in the history books were torn out in his state. Jimmy Kimmel said, I guess Ron DeSantis doesn't know about the Statue of Liberty. Ron DeSantis is the guy you went to high school with who desperately wanted to be prom king and didn't have any charisma, so instead he just pulled the fire alarm and ruined the dance for everybody. So I had recorded a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then Thursday afternoon, Saturday Night Live was like, hey, let's mess with Johnny Mac and put out major news. Thanks, Saturday Night Live, and thanks to DR, who put this on my radar on the Facebook group. SNL has 4 new cast members. They are Marcello Hernandez, Molly Kearney, Michael Longfellow, and Devin Walker. Hernandez, a stand-up comedian with 344,000 followers on TikTok. See Johnny Mac and you goof on TikTok comedians, they're on SNL and you're not. Hernandez talks in his act about moving from Miami to Ohio. He announced his casting on Instagram, writing, Little Cuban Dominican boy from Miami is on SNL. Molly Kearney is the first non-binary performer on SNL. They recently appeared on the new A League of Their Own TV show. Michael Longfellow describes himself on his website as comedian/actor/writer/stepson. And Walker is a comic and story editor on Phoebe Robinson's Everything Trash, who's also written for Netflix's Big Mouth. Vulture named him as one of the 22 comics you should and will know in 2022. Good job, Vulture. Eliza Schlesinger has announced a new special, Eliza Schlesinger Hot Forever. It comes out October 11th. Her special on Netflix covers everything from every girl's ugly bra to how all adult men need to own a box spring. Friday night, I watched those 2 new comedies on FX, and by watched, I mean tried to watch. Boy. So Kate Berlant, been tremendous buzz on Kate, and I sat down, and it was one of those specials that I'm watching it, and I'm like, this is not going to be for me. I lasted 2 minutes, 32 seconds before I bailed. I'm not here to hate on it. It just was not for me. Then I tried Byron Bauer's special. I really liked how it was shot. There's an opening sketch that was pretty cool, and then he is performing in a club that has a boxing ring as a stage, and it just looked really cool. I thought the writing was better than his performance. So I got about 13 minutes in, and I was like, this isn't getting any better. Life's short. I got to watch all kinds of things. So I bailed on that, and then I watched Rick and Morty's first 2 episodes of the new season. Hilarious. Daniel wrote on the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group, Mr. Mac, you were right. Sheng Wang's special was great. I was laughing at most every segment. I love his Mitch Hedberg-like cadence. Simple life observation with the great jokes to tie it all in. I also recommend this to people. Daniel was then going to watch Sam Morril's special and wrote, I appreciate your input and recommendations on the podcast. Thank you for listening. Nick Kroll has a special coming out. He's also on Netflix. Nick Kroll's Little Big Boy, September 27th. I've been playing some Nick over on the Weekly Comedy Thing, which is the show on Live One. By the way, time out. As I put the show together this week for Live One, go check it out. It's free. And the reason I want you to check it out, aside from just cross-promoting stuff, Adrienne Iapolucci's stand-up is amazing. She's like my new fave. I was listening to that album. I actually was sending it to people going, you know what? This is really good. So I played a clip of her, Adrienne Iapolucci, in this week's Weekly Comedy Thing, and you can get that show for free on the Live One app. Anyway, back to Nick Kroll, who for the same reason, I've been into his stand-up a little. I've been paying a little more attention as I've played him on the show, and I'm like, yeah, you know, Nick is underrated as a stand-up. The trailer's out for Nick Kroll, Little Big Boy, Netflix September 27th. On the special, Nick talks about getting his heart broken for the first time at the ripe age of 33, the power of mothers, his journey to fatherhood, and the trick to farting without making any noise. It's been a while since we stopped off at Gossip Corner, shall we? Because Martha Stewart has been talking about Pete Davidson. Why they're friends? I don't know, other than she's an older woman. Martha says, Pete's doing 2 movies at the present time, and he's agreed to do my podcast, supposedly. I look forward to that. How's Pete doing post-Kim split? Martha Stewart says Pete's having the time of his life. The guy's a talented actor and comedian who's a bon vivant at the same time. He's fun. I don't know what's going on there. Meanwhile, Kim Kardashian reacted to Pete Davidson's Kanye West shade at the Emmys. At the Emmys, Pete Davidson wore an outfit very similar to one worn by Kanye at the Met Gala. A source told Hollywood Life about Kim's feelings about Pete's outfit. Kim has no idea whether or not Pete was trying to send a subtle message to Kanye, but she's assuming it's his sarcastic way of responding to Kanye's attacks. However, Kim seriously hopes it had nothing to do with him, because she's had enough drama over this whole thing. She knows Kanye doesn't deserve for Pete to just sit back and take the attacks, but she's hoping Pete is taking the high road and isn't being petty over the whole thing. She doesn't have time for the messiness, and as much as she understands where Pete is coming from, Kim feels it really isn't worth it. She wishes him nothing but the best and hopes he can just let it go from here. Meanwhile, Kanye was out with Chris Rock in the West Village in New York City on last Tuesday night. Yeah. They were both wearing futuristic Yeezy SHDZ-YR3022 for Gap sunglasses. Did you get all that? It doesn't matter. They're sunglasses. So Chris is hanging out with Ye. They have matching sunglasses. Also last week, Chris Rock spotted in the front row of some Fashion Week event. Meanwhile, as these stories roll in one to another with a common theme, Radar Online says Will Smith has lost a lot of comedian friends since attacking Chris Rock, and now he's lost the support of the cast of SNL. An insider tells Radar Online Will Smith will never be invited back to SNL after what he did to Chris. The show is a temple for comedians, and no one wants him around anymore. Forget hosting, Will won't even be able to get a ticket to sit in the audience anymore. He's not welcome. If Will Smith was invited back, SNL would never get another big celebrity ever again, says a source. Stars would rightly boycott the show if Will Smith was welcomed inside Studio 8H. You know what? Not true at all. Somebody would host it the next week. People like to promote stuff. You could have Will Smith burn a flag, and somebody would host SNL next week. And Paul listens on the YouTube channel. Yeah, I post these episodes on YouTube as well. And he was listening to an episode where I mentioned that Chris Rock made some jokes about Prince Harry. And Paul had a great line, which is, I guess Chris Rock didn't learn his lesson. My guess is Harry's bodyguards slap a lot harder than Will Smith. Busy day over at Palace Intrigue. That's the podcast about the royal family. I'm the writer. We've been putting out 2 episodes a day for over a week now. This morning is or was, depending on when you're listening, the funeral of the Queen. So big day over at Palace Intrigue. If you want to follow that story, Palace Intrigue, wherever you get your shows. Some drama over at Ted Lasso. Saw a couple of reports about this. I'll read the one from Vulture. It seems, perhaps, possibly, maybe, Jason Sudekis is holding up production. The new season's been in the works for nearly a year, which is a long time considering it's only 12 episodes. Sources say they haven't seen the light at the end of the tunnel. Apparently, Jason Sudekis' perfectionism and inability to sign off on scripts has left the production in a cycle of rewrites. The writer's room began working on this season September last year. Significant changes to the script delayed filming until March, with shifting character arcs and other changes bleeding into April. Then they were going to shoot a scene at the Chelsea Football Club stadium, but that was frozen because the club's Russian oligarch owner was forced to sell the team over that whole Russian invasion of Ukraine thing. A source says season 3 is between 20 and 30% over budget and counting. Wow. You know what you ought to do, guys? You ought to wrap up Ted Lasso and do the Brett Goldstein, Roy Kent spinoff. That's what you ought to do. All right, Vulture does that list of the comedians you should and will know. Let's take a look at Ever Maynard. Vulture writes, it's not easy for a comedic persona to feel warm and biting at the same time, but Ever Maynard pulls it off. Maynard has a background in improv at the Second City, but they're most notably a stand-up. Their strongest characters and scenes rest on a careful line between bodily disgust and bodily outrage. Put on your seatbelt for this next description. On one side, a story about working in a West Hollywood gym and refusing to deal with a piece of jewelry you wear on a piece of male anatomy. Rhymes with toxing. Yeah, that. One of those found in the showers. On the other, a grim and remarkable joke about a game show called Here's Your Rape, where women realize they finally made one of the many errors they've been warned will lead to being sexually assaulted. That sounds edgy and then some. All right, best comedy advice, worst comedy advice. The best comedy advice I've ever received was to learn how to be patient and kind to myself. It's a tough industry, and it's easy to get caught up in your head with thoughts that just bring you down, such as, how did they get that? How am I not getting these opportunities? Why is this set not hitting? Where's the set going? I'll never succeed, etc. It's very easy to get tangled up in those thoughts. Worst comedy advice, that a mic is a mic and stage time is stage time, and you should always say yes to a show. While there's truth that practice makes perfect, it's okay to be selective with your time. And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your shows, and I'll see you tomorrow.